It's the 10 o'clock hours. It is Tuesday, August 22nd. The Board of Supervisors of the County of Del Norte and the governing body of all other special assessment and taxing districts for which said board so acts is now meeting in regular session. Only those items that indicate a specific time will be heard at the assigned time. All other items may be taken out of sequence to accommodate the public and staff availability. Kylie, would you take roll, please?
Supervisor Howard?
Present.
Supervisor Starkey?
Here.
Supervisor Wilson?
Here.
Supervisor Borges?
Here.
Chair Short?
I am here. If you'd all join me in a moment of reflection. Thank you. At this time, Supervisor Starkey, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Supervisor Starkey. Neil, do we have any introduction of new employees this morning?
Not that I'm aware of, Chair.
Thank you very much. Do we have any items to report out of closed session?
Not today, Chair.
Thank you. At this time, the chair requests any deletions, corrections, or additions from the board members to the agenda at this time. In order to add an item to the agenda, the matter must have come to the attention of the county subsequent to the posting of the agenda, and the matter requires action before the next regular meeting of the Board of Supervisors. We do have one urgency item, which is a resolution of the Del Norte County Board of Supervisors confirming the existence of the local emergency due to the Smith River Fire Complex. Again, to add this to the agenda, we'll take a 4/5 vote of the board.
I'll move to approve to add it to the agenda.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second to add it to the agenda. Is there any public comment on this urgency item? Seeing none, Kylie, will you poll the vote, please?
Supervisor Wilson?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Supervisor Borges?
Yes.
Supervisor Starkey?
Yes.
Chair Short?
Yes. Thank you. At this time, we'll receive any brief reports or announcements from the board members. Are there any such announcements?
I'm not going to do a lengthy report out today, given the fact that most of our staff need to get back to the EOC and start working on the emergency situation that we're facing. I was able to go to the high school yesterday and use their Wi-Fi in order to do the newsletter. And it seems so trivial at this point to even talk about anything else than the fire. I am going to just ask that, and I'm understanding, and everybody at the EOC and the OES office and all the acronyms are doing a phenomenal job. I am going to ask for more communication from Pacific Power directly to the residents. I think that is something that's vital. I think the residents are confused. I think this is a major situation happening in our community, and they want to hear from the source. So if Pacific Power is listening, again, I think just the direct updates to the public about where their grids are, what we can expect, those sort of things, I understand that promises can't be made, but really that communication from Pacific Power at this point is something I believe is vital. And I will just spend my remaining minutes, and there are so many people working on this, but I just want to take a moment to thank every single county employee who is there working overtime. You're working overnights at the shelter. You are putting, I saw the roads crew out directing traffic to get ice the other day. I just, there's so many people and so many people coming together for this, but I really want our county employees to know how much I appreciate the work that you're putting in to help mitigate some of the situation that's happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Starkey. Anything else from the other board members?
I just want to add one little thing. Given with all the emergencies going on, when another problem that arose, when the power generators got fired back up, it kind of messed with one of the lift stations there on Hoover in Oregon and caused the contactors to fail, so the pumps there are not working. But everyone is there, all hands on, city's working on it. We're pumping it down, keeping it, so there should be zero interruptions to your sewer system at all. But if you see the trucks, you see the guys working, that's what happened. It should be back up and running. But we were there all night and this morning and still there. So if you see that, that's what's happening.
I just want to say thank you, Supervisor Borges, for answering that call to go help with that. I'm being dead serious.
Thank you, Supervisor Borges. Anything else?
On the agenda, consent agenda, you'll see an item adoption of 2 appointments to the Klamath Fire District. This has been something that we've been working in with Klamath Fire District for quite a while. This will fulfill their obligations and be able to convene as a regular board and approved board, so they can go forward. They already have gone forward, and we have now budget's been passed for that district, which has been a resolution that's been needed for over a year now. So everything's looking much better, and I appreciate the time that they've put in. Also, just again, commend the EOC and the members that are there, the volunteers and county staff that have been putting in hours and hours. This has been probably the longest duration of an EOC stand-up that we've had for a long, long time, and it's a very difficult work and very hard. They're spending 12, 16 hours sometimes without relief. So appreciate all the work that everyone has done, and all the firefighters and all the community for stepping up and being able to not only accommodate their needs and meet their needs, but get and support them in their efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Wilson. Anything from Supervisor Howard?
Yeah, just real quick. There's obviously a lot going out. There's quite a bit of frustration out there. And at the same time, we see a lot of people rising to the challenge to make communication and folks aware. We have a lot of work to do. And I have a lot of faith in our staff and the folks that have come from outside this community, especially Team 15 who will be here with us today, that we're going to resolve these issues, and we can tackle it as a community together. The world continues to revolve around us. There are a lot out there that we still need to address as a county. Even though this is going on, we can't go to sleep and just focus on fire. There's quite a bit out there. One thing that I know has been brought to our attention by the County Fish and Game Commission is addressing these groundfish issues. I know Supervisor Borges is paying attention to this along with the rest of you guys. We do need to probably have a voice this week at that Fish and Game hearing on public comment, and hopefully speak our minds as it relates to this particular economic impact to our community. And the only other thing I'll mention, and I know we've had conversation in the past with DRC, I really want us as a community and as a board to have continued conversations to try to get pieces in place if natural disaster were to overwhelm us, whether it's fire, whether it's tsunami. There are companies out there that come in, take that workload off our shoulders, and also the expense that they direct through the FEMA process. And I know we've been having conversations, and I know they get pushed aside with our workloads, but I think it's a right time to revisit a lot of this at this point. So that's all I have at this time.
Thank you, Supervisor Howard. Yes, we do have a guest in the audience today, and I know he's probably needing to get back to work. So Tom, if you would mind giving us a quick update so you can get back to, yes, please step up to the mic. That way the people online can hear you as well.
Yeah, my name is, thank you for having me, giving me the opportunity to give you a little update today. My name is Tom Stokesbury. I'm the lead public information officer for California Interagency Incident Management Team 15. We're a federally organized team. We come from all over the country. Majority of our team is from Southern California, but we do have people on our team from Ohio. And myself, I am a resident of Humboldt County my entire life, and I spent the last 20 years on the Six Rivers National Forest, so I know this land really well. So it's an honor to be here. An update on the fire. We had significant growth over the last operational period, 24 hours. It had gained 15,000 acres. We are at 45,000 acres currently, give or take a little. Most of that growth was in the Stony Creek drainage area. And then, of course, up on French Hill, pushing down towards the 411 road. At this time, it does look like probably the Kelly Fire will merge with the hurdy-gurdy and the Coon Fire. But we do have a lot of resources in there. We are up to 1,200 firefighters that are now here and on this fire. So all the resources that we can get here are being brought to bear. They are coming in. We are the #1 priority fire in the nation. So with that, we have a great plan. The structure prep in and around all the threatened communities is going extremely well. We're looking to get that area around Gasky stabilized so we can hopefully start to repopulate that area. That's definitely going to be a call of the Sheriff's Department, but they're working closely with the Office of Emergency Services, our team. So that's definitely one of our goals, to have that happen really soon. If that does happen, we want to have that repopulation happen in a tiered fashion, just like we did with the evacuation, so we can get everybody in there safely. That's the goal. Firefighter and public safety, and then of course the protection of our critical infrastructure on Highway 199. We're very aware of that. And then of course the power lines, the transmission lines. We're working really hard in there to get that area secured so that Pacific Power can get their crews in there. They can examine them, see if there was any damage to the lines, and get those things re-energized. So it is our top priority. My ICs would like, my incident commanders would like me just to relay the amount of cooperation that's going on between the different agencies in this county. They've really never seen before, and it's an amazing community here. Caltrans, Highway Patrol, OES, you know, the support from the Board of Supervisors, the City Council, everybody. It's just been truly amazing. And then of course the support from the public and the outreach from the public to our firefighters, it's not lost on their ears. We relay that to them every day, and it means a tremendous amount to them. So is there any questions I can answer?
How long is your management team here for when you get switched out?
I believe our last workday is going to be the 31st, so we'll be putting an order in for another team so that they can prep and get prepared. When that team arrives, we will in-brief them, and then they will shadow us for at least 1 to 2 days. So honestly, the community won't even notice. It'll be a seamless transition, and that'll happen. But we're not going anywhere as far as incident management teams until we can get this community back to where they need to be.
Very good, thanks.
What's the status of the group that was overrun on Camp 6?
The firefighters, there was no injuries to there. They were able to retreat back to Camp 6. That repeater tower did take a little bit of heat, but it's still fully operational, and those firefighters are okay. Yeah. Yeah. There was, I just want to say, to keep firefighters in your thoughts and prayers, there was a major injury on the Six Rivers National Forest about 5 days ago. A hot shot from the Little Tihunga Hot Shots was struck by a fallen tree. It was a catastrophic injury. He's had multiple surgeries, still in intensive care, so he's definitely one of our brothers. So we just want to, we're keeping him in our thoughts and prayers. So
Thanks for that, Tom. Supervisor Howard?
Yeah, Tom, I know we've been hampered dramatically by the weather. It's played odds with us, but there was obviously blue sky this morning in Hyuchi. Are you going to be able to get air support in there today and start attacking this?
Yeah. So this morning at briefing, I was actually able to see some of the mountains around Gasky, so that was really nice to see. So some of this wind we saw last night did push out some of that inversion, and this is going to be an optimal day for us for firefighting. So we're looking at really making some great progress today. We've got everybody where they need to be. We're going to be able to get a lot of air up, so we're looking for a really good day. We are going to have a warming trend coming back in the next few days. But right now, we're going to take advantage of today, and we're going to hit it hard. Full suppression strategy.
Good deal.
Awesome. Thank you.
And just remind the folks at the community meeting on Wednesday.
Yes, community meeting tomorrow night, 6 p.m. at the Arts and Craft Building at the Del Norte County Fairgrounds. We invite everybody. Everybody's welcome to attend. I believe Supervisor Howard is going to speak. So we have a lot of representation there. So please come out. Please come out. We're going to have representatives from Caltrans, CHP, Pacific Power. We're inviting Spectrum to come out. We want everybody there. And then we'll do the same thing we did on Saturday night. We will not leave the building until everybody's question is answered.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Anything from Supervisor Borges? Okay. Appreciate that update,
Okay.
Tom. Thanks for being here on the short notice to give us the update. Hopefully people
Okay.
can tune in and help spread that information.
All right.
Appreciate that very much.
Thank you. I do have to leave, but I appreciate the time. And if you guys need anything from me, Supervisor Howard knows how to get a hold of me.
Very good.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate you taking the time. In that line, not an action item. With the idea of trying to get people back to the EOCs and working where they need to go, I'm going to move to item number 21, which is approve and authorize the Director of Community Development to request direct technical assistance from the State Department of Water Resources to help the county prepare a county drought resilience plan and designate the Natural Resources and Environmental Coordination Technical Advisory Committee or a designated working group established under the NREC TAC to serve as the Standing Drought and Water Shortage Task Force as requested by the Director of Community Development. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to present this early. I do appreciate that. I don't know if you want a presentation for me or if you just want me to respond to any questions that you may have regarding this item. I think just really for the audience, generally it's Senate Bill 552 requires each county in the state to establish a county drought resilience plan and a working group that is put together to monitor the status of drought and how it affects individual wells and small water systems. What we have been asked, or what has been offered to us, is financial assistance, either by way of a grant or through technical assistance provided directly from the Department of Water Resources in order to prepare that plan. One of the ideas that we had considered for the establishment of the working group, or the group that would help put that together, would be using the Natural Resources and Environmental Coordination TAC as the basis for that, and we could bring in additional members from the public, stakeholders into that. We have quite a large list of people who already receive notifications for that, and we'd be more than happy to expand it to a wider group as needed. If that would work out. And we know from Department of Water Resources staff that that would be adequate as far as meeting the intent of what that group needs to be. Inside the board report, I put together some pros and cons as far as different options. One thing I thought of while I was sitting in my chair is that we do have some on-call agreements with consultants. For example, Freshwater Environmental Solutions out of the Humboldt area. LACO. I don't know if we have one from GHD or not, but if you do choose to go the route where we would hire a consultant directly, my request would be to first put that offer out to those consultants that we already have on call, and to be perhaps to evaluate those and bring those to that Natural Resources Environmental Coordination group for a decision.
Okay, thank you. Is there
You're
any
welcome.
questions from the board for Heidi at this time?
I'm very comfortable with it. What I am going to ask is that in your board packet, you prepared some slides. If you could have that up on your website so that the people can see that if they don't get the actual board packet, the slides with regard to what this is about. Oh, no, is this the drought? Yeah, right here, the summary requirements.
It does come up on the public page.
It does, okay.
Yes.
I apologize. I've been without internet. Okay, thank you. I apologize.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make the motion to approve item 21 as read into the record by the chair.
Very good. We have a motion. Is there a
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing no public comment, Kylie, would you poll the vote, please?
Supervisor Borges?
Yes.
Supervisor Starkey?
Yes.
Supervisor Wilson?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Chair Short?
Yes. CEO Lopez, do you see any other items that we should take up, other than the ones on consent? I didn't see any others that would affect people that need to get back to the EOC.
I do not, Chair.
Okay. So at this time, we'll go ahead and take up the consent agenda. Is there any public comment on the consent agenda at this time?
So number 9, you appoint 3 people. I'd like to know if they've had any oversight training. Because usually what you do is appoint people that are yes people, and they do as they're told instead of actually doing the job they're supposed to be doing. Let's see, the fire district issue down in Klamath, that's almost laughable to me. They couldn't even provide the public with agendas or agenda meeting minutes. It's a disaster down there, just waiting to happen. That's all.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment on the consent agenda? Okay, I'll go ahead and close public comment at this time. Bring it back
Make
to
the
board.
motion to approve the consent agenda, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion. Is there a second to approve the consent?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Kylie, would you pull the vote, please?
Supervisor Starkey?
Yes.
Supervisor Borges?
Yes.
Supervisor Wilson?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Chair Short?
Yes. Okay, moving on to item 22, and introduce an ordinance amending section 2.20.10 of the Delaware County Code relating to the Office of the Public Defender and direct County Council to prepare a summary of the ordinance as requested by the County Council.
I move to
Is there-
approve.
We have a motion to approve.
Second that.
And a second. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing no public comment, we'll bring it back to the board. Kylie, would you pull that vote, please?
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Supervisor Wilson?
Yes.
Supervisor Borges?
Yes.
Supervisor Starkey?
Yes.
Chair Short?
Yes. Okay. Item 23, eliminate the juvenile hall division within the probation department and all associated staff positions therein, effective as of September 14th, 2023. And 2, declare the juvenile hall unoccupied and direct staff to notify the Board of State and Community Corrections of this change in status as requested by the Chief Probation Officer. Is there any questions from the board at this time? Any issues?
I have a question. Is that, did County Council get a chance to review it? Normally there is approved as to form. Did you get a chance to review the language so that unoccupied will allow us? It says in the board report, but I just want to hear from our legal authority that should we need to reopen it as a custodial future in the future. I think I said, I don't know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I have not looked into that. I have not seen this language.
I was prepared to say that I did appreciate that it did say in the board report that we would be able to open without completely redoing the facility as a
but without,
custodial institution.
and I
So-
understand that, but without County Council looking into it, I'm going to abstain at this point.
Okay, is there any public comment on this item?
First off, I want to point out something to you folks. None of us have electricity, so we don't have access to the things on the agenda because we don't have Wi-Fi. So you're sitting here passing all this stuff and not even educating the public what it is because we don't have a clue what you're talking. Oh yeah, let's just, no public comment. Of course not, because we don't know what you're talking about. We don't have access to Wi-Fi, Mr. Short. And you guys think that's okay? Pass an ordinance. Oh, well, I don't know what that ordinance is. What was the first one? Pass whatever 21 was about. What's wrong with you folks? We're in a crisis. We need to know what's going on. You folks are the only ones that should have liberty to these issues. Thank you.
Chair, can I say something?
Certainly.
I just want to clarify for anybody that doesn't have access to Wi-Fi, every time there's an agenda posted, there's the full packet printed off in the clerk recorder's office in a binder for the public to review. Yes, it's only one copy. It would be a little chaotic at this point, but that resource is available.
That's true, and there is plenty of opportunities to obtain Wi-Fi in the county.
Yeah.
Any other public comment?
Good job. Good job.
Actually, I got to see this item and all of the attachments last Friday before the power went out. As you know, I'm Norma Williams, Chapter President, Delaware County Employees Association, SEIU 1021. Before this emergency, the power went out. I'm sure the chief would have been here to make any kind of presentation, and I would have concurred with what was going to be presented. However, because of the power outage and inability to contact anybody, I've not had a chance to voice my concern and questions now that have arose because of the public health emergency, the fact that there's no power and no internet service. And I've not been able to voice my concern and questions to the CAO or to the HR manager as a result. If you approve this today, per our contract, the clock starts ticking per Article 10. This would give the employees 25 days for those who are impacted, 25 days to basically work with HR in order to apply for positions within the county. It would also, I believe, also impact those in terms of any of the transfer paperwork and anything else. So my concern right now is because we are in a public health emergency, because county staff is being, spread elsewhere. Obviously, the chief is not here. There's no internet, there's no cell phone. My concern is if you approve this today, this is going to be a disservice to the impacted employees. This will negatively impact their ability to have their rights upheld and protected by the contract. And the only thing that I can do now, without having the ability to speak to address this directly with the chief and the CAO and the HR manager, is to ask you to hold off on this item and at least give us another opportunity to discuss these, or if not, wait till this, because you cannot guarantee, we do not know how long this is going to last. And I do not want to have impacted employees negatively impacted and have their rights per the contract, violated. I would be doing a major disservice to the employees otherwise. So I'm asking you to hold off on this until either the emergency ends and I can have further discussions with the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Norma. Appreciate that.
Neil, is there a timeline this has to happen?
No, I was actually just going to state that I confer with County Council, and the board can actually change the effective date on this only. So it would be a pay period in the future past the 14th of September. It could be the 28th of September, which would be the next pay period following that. But this is really uncertain. As Norma just pointed out, we have no idea when this is going to end. This could be very long term, and that is taking all of our resources right now. We could bring it back at the next meeting with the pay period that makes more sense, because we know we'd at least have to push it back to the 28th. And I completely agree with Norma.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would it be best to table it then for
Continue
now?
this to,
Or continue it?
yeah.
Yes, we table that.
Council, do we need a motion to table?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to table it.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We've already had public comment. Kylie, would you pull the vote, please?
Excuse me. Supervisor Wilson?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Supervisor Borges?
Yes.
Chair Short?
Yes. Okay, we have reached the 10:25 hour. It is now time for our public comment period. Members of the public may address the board on matters which are within the jurisdiction of the board. If you are addressing the board regarding a matter listed on the agenda, you may be asked to hold your comments until the board takes up that matter. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less.
Chair.
Is there any?
Just wanted to remind you, I know we are at 10:25, but there was a proclamation on the consent agenda.
Yes.
So just to keep a note to maybe read it after public comment, if possible.
Yeah, we haven't yes, okay.
Thank you.
I will do that. Thank you. Appreciate the reminder. Is there any general public comment at this time?
Hi. I was physically assaulted in a psych op by Crescent City Police Department, which is a violation of PC 236, false imprisonment in California, the unlawful violation of the personal liberty of another. Violence is using physical force that is greater than the force necessary to restrain someone. It was a psych op to stigmatize me, try and get me in the system and create a record. As I said previously, I'm a whistleblower who's being retaliated against. I went to the DA for assistance and I mentioned brain-to-computer interface, and then she talked about behavioral issues and asked me to leave, and I was cool. So I want to know, why is brain-to-computer interface considered a behavioral issue, and why aren't we talking about the behavioral issues of the police, the FBI, Fed Intel agencies? When Snowden did his reveal, why did no one get arrested for all the laws they broke? In fall 2022, and UC Davis is lying about me and has participated. and I want nothing more than to defend myself against any allegations set against me because I can obliterate the false narratives. And I have thousands of pieces of evidence, and I can assure you the public would care very much. They'd be horrified, experience cognitive dissonance. This technology is in me. In fall 2022, UC Davis opened the spectral imaging facility. Scientists in nanobiotech recently acquired one of the most advanced microscopes in the world, a combo of an atomic force microscope and a laser scanning confocal microscope. Karen Moxon's Neurorobotics and Brain-to-Computer Interface Lab works on brain encoding and how this information is used in brain-machine interfaces. Not only is this for medical studies, but it is being used by the FBI and Fed Intel agencies on me for human subject experimentation, including sadistic mind control experimentation, which your school district has been a part of, including Humboldt, in which the bus driver went like this to let me know he got paid. Placer County school districts are participating. So I would like to see about doing a presentation for this board to talk about these matters in more detail. This is going to be increasing in the future as it has increased the last 10 years with COINTELPRO and like sadistic torture terrorist programs of the FBI and police. Weaponized brain-to-computer interface and weaponized nanobiotech can be detected with this microscope, any microscope at any UC or university that has this technology. Because in this technology travels rapidly through the body, through the circulatory system, and through the brain. It travels through the central and peripheral nervous systems, down the pudendal nerve to the dorsal nerve of the female genitalia and clitoris. The police, sheriff, FBI, Fed Intel are sex trafficking and exploiting me. I am having violence committed against me.
Please wrap it up. Your 3 minutes are expired.
Well, this is something needs to be talked about globally and nationally. It is a form of sexual assault and violence, so I would like to get on the calendar to do a presentation for the board to talk about this in more detail. I'm not sure who to talk to. Mr. Wilson, I have been instructed you are the individual I talk to get on the board to do a presentation. Okay, this isn't an issue that should be laughed about. Years before I shined a light, I am a victim of torture and terrorism.
Thank you. Your time has expired.
Who do I talk to do a presentation?
Me.
Okay, I would like to do a presentation about this because it's going to be a serious issue.
Go ahead and get a hold of me through the office, but your time's expired for public comment at this time. Is there any other general public comment?
First off, I want to tell you that your resolution is inaccurate with dates. At 0400 hours, people were taking pictures on the ridge down in the Narrows of the fire. It was only 1,500 to 1,700 acres. By Wednesday, Hank Aiken of 3rd District called Mr. Lopez, and because the fire had jumped and it was surrounding the Patrick's Creek Lodge, and said, hey, we got an issue. Mr. Lopez says, well, that's a U.S. forest issue. Okay. That's the attitude we got? We can't help each other, intra-agencies? As you well know, 45,000 acres later, now we're all on lockdown, pretty much, no power. In the meantime, we got a generator that got part of the town up for the businesses. Folks, people do not have money to go out and eat. Why don't you get generators for the residential areas so we can cook and bathe? This is outrageous. Lady up in Hiuchi, elderly lady, surviving on peanut butter and bread for the last 3 days. Go to Hiuchi, love to eat there. But guess what? 2 pancakes and a drink was $23. That's for one person. Now you tell me how people are supposed to go to these businesses and support local businesses when we have no money. Somebody mentioned on the internet, we should be getting vouchers because no power. Now, that's one more point. Oh, today on the radio, Angelina Greeno called in. Somebody's running around and helping people with the generator so that they can hook up the refrigerators. So what's Bill Stevens say? Oh no, they can't do that. You gotta go through OES and get approval. Well, let me tell you something. Neighbors are helping neighbors. We don't have to get your approval from OES. Nobody's charging to use their generators. If it wasn't for my neighbor, I wouldn't have a generator. So you folks, you really dropped the ball on this fire situation. U.S. Forest dropped the ball. Mr. Lopez dropped the ball. You're missing in action half the time. And I'm out of time. So let's get residential area power, not frickin' businesses. We can't afford to go eat at the businesses.
I'm certainly heartwarmed to think that Office of Emergency Services is such a wonderful entity in this county. I wish it were, and I wish it were the case, but I probably am more fortunate than most residents in the county because I actually have a generator and I actually can put some lights on. I can't take a shower. My pump doesn't work. But when I call 707-464-0911 for nearly a week, I got the blissful experience of 20 seconds of silence and a hang-up. One time I was more persistent and I called it twice in a row and I got a cell phone number, which actually didn't do me a whole lot of good because it had been 3 days since I had power and I didn't have a cell phone that worked at that point because I was trying to find out whether I should drag my generator out and actually use it. I did finally get a hold of somebody at that number, 707-464-0911, and a very nice young lady informed me that any thought that the transmission lines over the mountain would come to fruition and be usable anytime in the near future, you might as well think that that probably wasn't going to happen for quite a while, that Pacific Power was dragging generators into town and they were going to provide power to essential services, which means that most people in the county are not likely to be getting real live access to power for some time. And we have no idea when you talk to people at emergency services that this is the case, that we may be in this situation for a lot longer than most people realize. And I would think after a week that situation at Office of Emergency Services would be somewhat more informative and more useful than it has been up to this point. The other thing I don't understand is we have a utility company 20 miles away that is fully powered, and California and Oregon can't seem to get along enough to allow for power to be accessed from that service. Instead, we're going to sit here in the dark for the next foreseeable future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam. Any other public comment?
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, go right ahead.
Two items. Tom Stokesbury, I took a call here just recently. He wanted me to share out with you guys that Caltrans has begun the process this morning to reopen Highway 199. And this is directly from CHP, that they'll begin controlled traffic on 199 with 2 openings per day, one in the morning and one in the evening, time to be determined, starting Monday next week for controlled traffic across 199. He wanted me to share that out. In addition, and I did not report this out, but I do think it's pertinent to the last piece of public comment, in the work that we've been doing with tri-agency, specifically Brian Stone and Wes White, we have looked at the connection opportunities to the Coos Curry Electric. We've worked with PP&L representatives to look at this potential hookup, which used to exist. Unfortunately, the lines that exist now are not of the right KV size in order to reconnect to that system, and there would need to be a new power line run from Brookings Harbor to the substation here in Fort Dick in order for that to happen. I believe for future conversations, this board really needs to work with PP&L and our state senator for that redundancy issue to take place, which we used to have at one time, but when Brookings joined the Coos Curry Cooperative decades ago, that connection was essentially severed. So I thought I'd share that with you today as it is pertinent to this conversation.
And if I could just add that this is why it's very important for Pacific Power to get out in front of the public. We need to hear this information directly from Pacific Power. People just want to know what steps have they taken, what steps could they try, just like Supervisor Howard just shared, that at least they're looking at other options. I really encourage Pacific Power to be out there to answer the community's concerns. So if we could make that happen, I would really appreciate. I know there's a public meeting tomorrow, and I'm really hoping that Pacific Power will be there presenting what they're doing and what they're trying to troubleshoot.
Thank you for that. So now we're going to move on down. Gordon, I haven't forgotten about you. We do have a 10:30 timed item, a presentation from, or an update from Green Diamond Resource Company, Pete Jackson, the community, General Manager, and Britta Goldstein, Community Affairs Representative.
Vice President Pete Jackson.
Did I say that wrong? I thought I said Vice President. I'm sorry.
General Manager.
Hello,
Thank
thank
you.
you
Sorry
for
if I-
the invite. So my name is Pete Jackson. I am the Vice President, General Manager of Green Diamond Resource Company. And I have Britta Goldstein with me, our Public Affairs, Public Relations Representative. First of all, I'd like to say, our thoughts are with the community here in Del Norte, the public employees, and also the firefighters out on the ground. We have employees that live up here. We have contractors that work up here. My in-laws live up here and are without power since Friday, so we, just want to be cognizant of that. Briefly about Green Diamond, so it's a fifth-generation family-owned company that started in 1890 up in the southwestern Washington area, focused on owning timber assets. They moved down in this area in the late 1940s in Requa, the purchase of Requa Redwood Company, and have been basically in the communities and acquiring lands in the Humboldt, Del Norte, Mendocino, and Trinity counties ever since that time period. Currently, the company owns and manages about 2.2 million acres across 9 different states. On the West Coast, that's California, Oregon, Washington, and Montana. Here in Del Norte County, the company owns and manages about 89,000 acres. So we're a very large private landowner here in this county. We have about 20 contractors that we employ from this local community and several employees that live up here. Our average harvest up in Del Norte County over the last 5 years is probably about 47 million feet a year, short log scale. We have a handout that can go to the supervisors that has a few of these highlights on them if you want to refer to them at a later time. And then as far as yield taxes, on average, since about 2014, that's anywhere from $300,000 to $600,000. So that's kind of the implications from a tax standpoint to what we mean in the community. Questions I get a lot are we investing in our timberlands in Del Norte County, or are we, divesting our ownership? So over the last several years, we've increased the land base here by about 2,450 acres. most recently with the acquisition of New Forest that closed in January of this year. So that was some of the properties that are up in the kind of low divide area and spread out in some other areas as well. I'll have Britta come and talk a little bit about kind of our involvement in the community, and then I can touch a little bit on the end on just the fire situation and what that means to the company. Britta?
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Britta Goldstein. I'm the Community Affairs and Communications Representative for our California Division. I just wanted to reiterate Pete's statement that we try and do our best to invest in Del Norte County. Part of my job is to serve as liaison between the company and the communities in which we operate in, including Del Norte. We take pride in the partnerships, our volunteerism, and the sponsorships that we provide to the community each year. We do that with several different organizations, namely the Chamber of Commerce is one of our go-tos, as well as remaining active in the Last Chance Grade Partners program. And then we just wanted to also acknowledge that we are trying to grow our involvement as well. So Green Diamond is always available for questions, comments, or invitations to participate in any sort of local activities or events. So we are happy to be a resource for Del Norte.
Yeah, most recently, Britta and her husband, who also works for us, are up at the fair and purchased 2 steers. So we're looking forward to passing out that meat to our employees. I just want to touch briefly on the fire situation. We're watching this very closely ourselves. We're impacted. We've had crews out since Friday working nonstop on the Upper Rowdy Creek area, reestablishing a fuel break that was put in during the Biscuit Fire. So that's on what we call the RW 1400 country. It essentially is kind of up in that low divide country and runs north just on the west side of Copper Creek and really runs towards the confluence of Copper Creek and Rowdy Creek. So we're expecting to have that reestablished by about Wednesday. We've had employees and contractors working on that basically nonstop throughout the daylight hours since Friday to open that back up. And that'll be about 75 feet wide and run for probably about 3/4 of a mile or so as another line of defense if that fire gets back over Low Divide and crosses down over into Copper Creek and then up onto the next ridge essentially is where this fuel break is. So we're watching the situation very closely. Our employees are without power as well, some of the ones that live up here. It's a challenging time for all, but our hearts are with you guys and we'll get through this. So I entertain any questions that anyone has.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
I do have some comments and questions. I didn't know if you wanted to go to public comment first.
Just for the public's knowledge, what kind of insurance policies can a company like yours get for the timber that you have?
None.
None. That is the answer to that. Thank you.
So
Thank you for
we
being here and reinforcing those.
in 2020, the Slater fire came through and burned up what we call the Moore Tract. And that was it's a 5,000 acre block of land and it burned up 4,500 acres of it. So we, I think that fire was, September 7th, 9th, sometime in there. You guys might. And we had logs moving to the mill within 30 days. So we ended up salvaging about 16 million feet of timber off of that and we're completed within 1 year. Now that's not what we want to see happen to that piece of property. It's devastating to that property and it sets that property back for many years. We're now in the process of replanting, trying to manage the brush. In all likelihood, that property is going to burn again, or at least portions of it. It hasn't happened yet, but it could happen here any day. There is no insurance policy for that kind of stuff that a company like ours can go after, but we do our best to harden our timberlands to fire, and then if a catastrophe, catastrophic fire does happen, then do our best to minimize the loss.
A lot of that standing timber up there from that Moore tract was pine. Question's been asked, and I don't know the answer. There's really no market for pine right now, but couldn't you log some of that and put it out there to the market? Would people buy it up? I don't know the answer to that. Why
So,
couldn't we
so
do that?
the majority of what we harvested or salvaged out of there was Doug fir, but we did salvage about 500,000 board feet of pine, and that went to South Coast. So the markets are much more limited for pine, and there's really not much value in it. So you just hope not to lose money. It's you know, I went to a place to buy lumber here down in my area, and I think they had 1 by 12 pine was $4,000 a thousand. So it kind of makes me scratch my head that that there's not more opportunities for pine. There's just not a lot of mills that consume it, and there's plenty of Doug fir, which is what all the mills want to kind of satiate them. We don't own any sawmills, so we sell into the markets, but the pine is a frustrating one, and that's not just in this area, also interior to California and Oregon, pine's a big challenge.
Can it not be used for structural?
It's not used for structural uses, so window trimming, moldings, things like that, ceiling, paneling are some of the uses. South Coast ends up using it for plywood and sticking kind of in the middle of their plywood layers. Yeah, but they have a limited amount that they can take.
That kind of answers the question. Hoping to bring the lumber prices down with pine, you know, start building with pine, but you can't. So that's a good answer. Thank you
Other
very
questions
much.
or comments from anybody?
I do have a few, but I know we need to go to public
We
comment.
do have
so-
some public comment, so maybe you'll be able to answer some questions that'll come out of that. So appreciate you, Pete. I'll open it up to public comment right now so people can come up and ask their questions, and we'll have you back.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
So when I hear the word fire breaks, I am now scared. On Sunday, I drove up French Hill until I was 9.5 miles before I had to turn around. And during that 9.5 miles, there were piles of twigs, leaves, and chunked up logs, whatever, and then covered with black plastic, and then more pile on top of that. Very combustible. This went on for miles. This is on French Hill. Why is that stuff being allowed to lay on the ground, which only enhances the fire, instead of picked up and taken to the transfer station or wherever? Now we got problems on French Hill. And I have videos. So why do they do that? Why don't they pick it up as they cut it up and haul it off?
That is a great question for the Forest Service. Wish they were here to answer that. Is there any other public comment on the Green Diamond presentation? Okay, seeing no public comment, I'll close the public comment at this time. Supervisor Howard?
No. Thank you, Pete, for being here today. You know, we've done this annually for quite some period of time, starting back when Neil Ewald was vice president, and even before him with Jim Brown. It's a great tradition.
Jim Brown just passed away on Sunday.
Oh,
so
sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
He was a great leader for this entire region.
Agreed.
Yeah, my condolences to his family. So it's a great legacy that Jim has left us in communication with this county, Humboldt County, and the other counties that you guys work in. And Green Diamond has been an incredible partner here. I wanted to bring up some points and compliment Green Diamond specifically under your leadership, especially with outgoing Craig Compton, how great your employees are to work with our departments like community development. As you're aware, some of the higher better use lands down here in the flats have now begun the process for conversion to potential home sites here in the future, more specifically the Wonder Stump area. That is absolutely 100% wonderful. Having that available inventory for this community is great, especially where we're going as a county and trying to provide more housing for our folks in the future. And I wanted to say thank you for having Craig Compton work so closely with our folks to get that ball rolling. I'm hoping you will do more of that in the future, as I know you have more area in the Fort Dick to consider for that type of housing. I wanted to also make mention about that Slater fire. That was sad to see. But you guys did a yeoman's effort to get in there, get that board footage out, and get it to market before there wasn't much material left to salvage. Obviously, that landscape's going to be quite scarred for a long period of time. We see what intense heat does to the soil. It's not something that recovers overnight, as we've now seen with the biscuit scar, which is currently threatening. And I'll end with this, and this is a compliment to your staff up here, like Joel Rink. You know, Joel responded immediately to CAL FIRE's request on that diamond fire piece that was threatening your boundary up there Friday night. And your staff got on their crap, immediately responded to CAL FIRE and addressed those issues. And that fire has not spread a lick. And it's with that team effort and partnership that you guys have with CAL FIRE that I cannot compliment you enough about your employees' commitment to our community. So thank you for that, and I wanted to end with that today, that Green Diamond has been an incredible community partner with those legacies that I previously mentioned, and I hope it continues.
No, I really appreciate that feedback, and you know, we strive to be part of the community. I was born and raised in the Humboldt County area. My family's been in that area for 5 generations. My in-laws live up in this area. I mean, we're vested in the community and really take our involvement in the community seriously. Our timberlands tend to be that band that's between the Forest Service and sort of the the public's or the private ownership down around towns in that interface, and there's definitely portions of that lend themselves better to development. You know, our core focus is timber management. We also sell carbon, do conservation easements, things like that. And then look for opportunities where we can partner with communities where it's sort of a win-win, where you need development and we're having a difficult time kind of managing around the public. But that interface is an important area, and we're doing our best to make sure it doesn't burn up. Yeah,
thank you.
Appreciate your comments, Chris.
Thank you, Pete. Anything else from the board members? Yeah, appreciate you being here and giving us a presentation. I know I've got a couple of friends who are both contractors and employees and compliment the company. Yeah, I think that says a lot for a company when their employees compliment their employer. So again, thank you for being here, giving us the information. Very much appreciated.
Yep, we'll try to make this a yearly occurrence.
Very good. Thank you. And thank you, Britta, also for being here. Okay, we're going to back up to our consent agenda item, our proclamation for a recognition of Suicide Awareness Month.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gordon, if you don't mind, I'm going to read this on the record now. And this is a proclamation for September as Suicide Awareness and Prevention Month. Whereas suicide is a major public problem and immediate and long-term effect on individuals, families, and communities. And whereas the ongoing stressors brought by the COVID-19 pandemic, stay-at-home mandates, economic turmoil, social unrest, and growing inequity likely modify risk of self-harm. Whereas suicidal thoughts can affect any, regardless of age, gender, race, orientation, income level, religion, or background, and suicide is a major health problem issue that requires vigilant attention and preventive action, especially during times of pandemic. Whereas 4,164 Californians lost their life to suicide in 2022, and whereas suicide was the 14th leading cause of death in California in 2021, the second leading cause of death for 25 to 35-year-olds, and the third leading cause of death for 10 to 24-year-olds, and the sixth leading cause of death for 35 to 45-year-olds. And whereas each death by suicide directly impacts numerous family members, friends, loved ones, and by extension, the entire rural community. Whereas research shows that 95% of adults would do something if someone close to them was thinking about suicide if they only knew what to say. Now therefore, the Delaware County Board of Supervisors hereby proclaims September 2023 as Suicide Awareness and Prevention Month. Be it further resolved, the Board of Supervisors encourages all citizens to learn the warning signs, trust their gut, and use the information to ask troubled friends, colleagues, or family members, are you okay, and prepared to listen. That conversation could change a life. Signed by Darren Short, this day, the 22nd, August 2023. Gordon, would you please receive this?
Thank you so much. You bet. Appreciate it. Thank you for being here, Gordon.
question. Am I on the clock?
No, sir.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. I'm saddened because things are getting worse in rural Oregon and rural California, and in particular in our area. For the record, my name is Gordon Clay from Brookings, Oregon. Trigger warning. I'm here to talk about suicide. If it's too much for you to take care of yourself and leave the room. In 1995, I converted an RV into a bookmobile holding over 1,000 books on men's issues. I spent the next 4.5 years traveling 30,000 miles throughout the 26 Midwestern and Western states, visiting towns too small to have a bookstore or library. I talked to a lot of farmers and dairymen. We would talk about very often share their life and how difficult it was and their thoughts of suicide. Oftentimes they would say, I will not commit suicide at this time because of my family, but that is the only thing that was stopping us with that integrity to support their families. In fact, I saw a Farm Bureau video just a couple weeks ago, and talking about farmers and emotional, and one of the farmers says, that's not our way. And that's the stigma that we're trying to overcome. I would often ask if they had a gun, because of a considerable increase in risk of being used in a suicide. I estimated about 70% of them said yes. I then asked if they got it to protect the household, and that dropped to about 40%. Then I asked if they kept it loaded, and the number dropped to around 30% of them, and almost all of them had it in their bedroom. I asked finally, have you ever had to use it to stop a home invasion? In 4.5 years, and to date, I was just up in La Grande for a presentation a week and a half ago. 0. The gun lobby has done a really good job of selling guns, and this concern and the fear of the government or somebody taking over the home. And to date, and I'm sure there are some people out there, but to date I haven't met one person that has a loaded gun in their bedroom or in their house that has had a home invasion and needed to use it. And the reason I bring this up is that nationally, 58% of men and 33% of women who die by suicide use a firearm. And the real worrying statistic is that 78% of youth who die by suicide using a firearm found it in the home. That's a heck of a trade-off for an image sold by gun manufacturers, to lose a family member or a spouse, partner, or anybody for that matter. I don't have statistics on Del Norte County, but across the border in Curry County in 2021, 72% of deaths by suicide were by handguns, 50% of them women. Furthermore, the use of crude numbers, Curry had as many women use a firearm as Washington County, over 600,000 people. And when I added Clackamas County and Deschutes County, which is again over 600,000 people, we matched that number. And we're only 27,000 people. And my concern is that I don't think Del Norte County is probably much different than Curry County. I distributed this brochure that people who love guns love you. And this is a brochure not on taking away guns, it's on firearm safety. and I just mentioned what happens. And the real concern for me is we think we're teaching our boys to be safe and how to treat a firearm. But when they trigger on losing a relationship or something like that, that's the first thing they go for. And they find it. And we lose them. Research, well, in the, and the other one is develop a brochure for veterans. And this is, I am distributing these down here in Del Norte County. I've been doing this the last couple of months up in Curry County. And finally, this brochure is, you've had here since the pandemic. And it is currently in 42 locations in Crescent City and 7 in Smith River. And I'm doing a program that starts in September. It's a coaster program. And it's off of a program that we did in Curry County in April and May. And it was to tie in with alcohol. And 29% of the people that die by suicide have alcohol in them. So I developed this coaster up there to put into bars, and I wanted to get, coasters are free to bars in Oregon and probably here. So how do I get it on the bar? Drink responsibly, tip recklessly. Have a real high usage. We went through 10,000 of these since April. On the other side is Life is Better with You Here. And it has the 988 crisis and text line. However, we don't recommend using that at this point because what it ends up, there's so little services available, it ends up with right back at 911. And so we're recommending 741-741 for texting and the national phone line. And if you've got a crisis line here in the specific crisis line here in Del Norte County, use that one. What I'm doing is because of 95% of people said they want to do something, but they don't know how, I used this side here, and in September, which is Suicide Awareness and Prevention Month, here are what to do. Trust the signs, trust your gut, start a conversation, ask, are you okay? Listen, encourage action, stay in touch, and a conversation could change a life. And I will be distributing those to participating bars and restaurants that have bars. And I'm going to do a couple extra hits after this to get out there. I've got several. The Boathouse is my favorite green lip mussel place anywhere. And they've been having this for a while. So I want to thank you all for this proclamation once again. And I want to ask all Del Norte County citizens to pick up an Are You OK brochure and learn what your neighbors, colleagues, church members, and especially family members are saying, doing, and what's going on in their lives to recognize the signs of a potential crisis and learn how to help reduce the crisis before county services get involved. After all, the county services may not be available in time to help before the suicide. So I want to thank you. The big piece here is I've got these at 43 locations in Crescent City. 42. I'll have more. My goal is to at least have 50 by September. It's to get people to pick it up. If you don't know the warning signs for what people are saying and doing and what's going on in their life, please pick up a brochure and take it home with you. It's got services on the back if people need food or housing, that kind of stuff. So it's all over the place. And I've got over 174 locations in Curry County. I've got over 100 in Brookings. That's what I'm going for in Crescent City. And the issue is they're all over the place. They need to be picked up and had in the home so that when you see a friend that you would not want to lose, going through acting differently or something like that, you'll be prepared. Like CPR, if any of you have ever been licensed with CPR, it's a scary thing, but I bet you've never had to use it. If you are basically licensed, and we could probably get you a free training for an hour and a half with QPR, if you are there, this is in you and your mind to be really aware of what's going on with your friends. And we've gone through a spell here of really being disconnected. And we need to get back connected and know who our neighbors are and who our friends are and what's going on in their lives. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you, Gordon. You actually bring this to us at kind of a perfect time with the electricity being out. We have another situation where people are isolated. So just encourage everyone to reach out to your loved ones, the elderly, those that are usually alone. Probably are feeling it a little more now that there's no electricity and tougher communication. So just encourage people to do that. So any other?
I think the presentations today are really an indicator of the pain that a lot of people are going through and the difficulty of getting help. So anyway, thank you again so much. The time was no problem for me. I love it. I love listening to you. You are the most impressive board of commissioners or supervisors that I am connected with. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that.
Thank you, Gordon.
That's much appreciated.
Yeah.
Okay.
I only have one comment. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for what you do. But I also wanted to, there is a program here locally also called Are You OK? And this is a program that was run by the Sheriff's Office that basically, if you were a senior or if you had issues within your home, we would send out robocalls to every home that was on the Are You OK list to make sure that we got a live response. It would check on the senior every day. There was also door or window hangers that would go out so that your neighbors, but also patrol, if they had not gotten a contact with you that day, a live return, we would get a list of those that had not answered the Are You OK robocall, and then the patrol would go out and verify if you had not answered. So there is another program, same moniker, but it's tailored towards a different resource locally here. Thank you.
Who is running that program?
It was through the Sheriff's Office, but it's a national program. The Are You OK is a national program that the services provided.
Okay, well, the next time we reprint the brochure, we'll put the resource on it because that's the kind of things
Yeah.
that need to be on the brochure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again for being here, Gordon. Okay, moving on down our agenda, we have item 24, discuss and give possible direction to staff to draft a letter for the chair's signature to the California Department of Fish and Wildlife in relation to the closure of the nearshore groundfish fishery in the northern groundfish management area. After partially listening to our local Fish and Game Commission meeting, I understand that you were there, Supervisor Borges. It seems like this is a necessary thing for the board to weigh in on. I was having sketchy cell service, so I did not get the whole meeting, but it was said in the meeting that possibly it's too late for a letter, and I didn't understand that. I just wanted to bring it to the board for discussion. I think we should weigh in on this because it seems like the closure was severely kind of taken as a blanket closure in a way that did not make sense to protect the quillback. So I don't know if you would have any more information in that regard, or
You or me, I don't care.
either one of you. I just wanted to open up this conversation and possibly get a letter en route to CDFW. So
I'm just going to add, because Randy's been looking into this too, did he share any additional information before the meeting with you, Neil?
No, nothing additional than what he's already shared with the chair and with Vice Chair Starkey. It was a federal regulation that the state reacted to, and the California Department of Fish and Wildlife Commission enacted an emergency closure, and those are temporary, and so they are going to have, I think, on the future agenda this item to discuss at their level. But the board wanted to send some kind of response from the county, just basically saying we're not very pleased with what they did without consulting with us first. But again, it was emergency response to a federal thing enacted.
Yeah, and that's the piece that I think we're all trying to get a grasp on now, and it's very unclear how the emergency regulation came into effect and what data supported it. That data currently isn't online, at least for public consumption. So I was hoping which it doesn't look like it's on their agenda currently for the Fish and Game Commission this week. I was hoping some of that data would be presented that allowed us to determine from both the recreational creel census and also the commercial creel census that showed that the closure from the state line of Oregon and California down to Cape Mendocino was necessary. It gives us very little information to react to other than to say, we're not happy with this, and why isn't it impacting north of the border, and why is it not impacting south of Cape Mendocino. So I think at this time, a letter obviously I think should still be sent, whether or not it's allowed to be read into the record during the public meeting. Either Supervisor Borges and I could do that. I believe we both, have you signed up also online for the meeting?
I'm not.
Okay. So during their public comment period, and at least get it on record about the board's position. But I think the board needs to take a position first but with limited information at this time. There's not much more other than the very confusing language within the emergency regulations that I've read about where that line currently starts, what you could fish for. I've tried to get a hold of Dave Walker, who's the current Marine Warden for our area. Made 3 phone calls to him with no response to try to get a better understanding about how that impacts our fishery. And I'd had hoped to have that information for you today, and I haven't.
As far as I know, there was an attachment or some kind of a notice on the California Department of Fish and Wildlife webpage in regard to this action, but I don't think there was any specific data tied to it. And it seemed like the area that was included was pretty much it was an overreach, in our opinion, in our initial research. But again, we've been pretty occupied for the last several days, so we haven't looked any further into it.
Understood. Yep.
And I've had some conversations with Senator McGuire's office on this because my big concern was what data had they used to determine for the closure to affect Del Norte County. All I got back was local data was being used, but it wasn't shared. So I don't know what that data is to determine. Senator McGuire has spoke directly with Director Boneham about this. So I know it's on their radar. As to how much this is going to impact a change, I'm not certain. But she did provide me with the District Director, Carrie Lindecker, who is an angler and the best person to talk to with regard to details on the fishing side. But this email came in late last night, so I hadn't had a chance to reach out to her.
If you wouldn't mind sharing that with me, Supervisor Starkey, I'd appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it obviously it impacts us a great deal from the economic standpoint when a commercial and recreational closure like this that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Obviously, the feds are saying that the catch limit for quillback has been reached. This is not a species that is retained in any sense of the imagination. This is a species that is thrown back. Anglers don't want it in their catch. So I'm not entirely sure why we have to shut down an entire fishery for this one species that nobody keeps. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but at the same time, there wasn't a whole lot of information to go by. So at this point, I would move that at least two actions take place. One, we do write a letter requesting the data that supported the action by the Department of Fish and Game from the state line to Cape Mendocino for that closure. And then in addition, allow either Supervisor Borges or myself on behalf of the board to speak during public comment at the Fish and Game Commission meeting, expressing our concerns with this closure and the economic impacts to our community.
Did you make that motion? Because I'll second it.
Yes.
Okay.
That was a motion, yes. Any other comments from the board? Okay, I'll open this up for public comment. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing no public comment, I'll bring it back to the board. We have a motion and a second for 2 items. That's writing a letter requesting data that supports the closure, and also to allow either Supervisors Borges or Howard or both to speak at the Fish and Game Commission meeting. Kylie, would you pull the vote?
Supervisor Borges?
Yes.
Supervisor Wilson?
Yes.
Supervisor Starkey?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Chair Short?
Yes. Okay. Moving on to our budget transfers. We have 2 on the agenda today. One is approve and adopt budget transfer 06-20 in the amount of $38,710 within the fiscal year 23-24 budget from the contingency budget unit to the miscellaneous revenue and expenditures budget to purchase tax defaulted properties as requested by the County Administrative Officer and Office of County Counsel. And we also have 06-19 in the amount of $500 within fiscal year 22-23 from the juvenile hall budget to CYA budget for unexpected mental health services for wards held in custody out of county as requested by the Chief Probation Officer.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a
Second.
second? We do have a second. Is there any public comment on the budget transfers? Seeing no budget public comment, Kylie, would you pull the vote, please?
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Supervisor Borges?
Yes.
Supervisor Wilson?
Yes.
Supervisor Starkey?
Yes.
Chair Short?
Yes. Okay, our last item is our urgency item, resolution of the Delaware County Board of Supervisors confirming the existence of a local emergency. I'll go ahead and read this into the record. Whereas ordinance number 91-17 of Delaware County empowers the Director of Emergency Services to proclaim the existence or threatened existence of a local emergency when Delaware County is affected or likely to be affected by a public calamity and the Board of Supervisors is not in session, subject to ratification by the Board of Supervisors within 7 days. And whereas conditions of extreme peril to the safety of persons and property have arisen within this county caused by wildfires within the unincorporated area of the county, commencing on the 15th day of August 2023, at which time the Board of Supervisors of Delaware County was not in session. And whereas the wildfires were started by a series of lightning storms that began on August 14th, 2023. And whereas the county activated the Emergency Operations Center on August 15th, 2023. And whereas the primary power source serving all of Delaware County was de-energized on August 18th, 2023, and that outlying areas of the county have been without power for 4 days. And whereas the fires are growing rapidly with 0% containment and are burning in extreme terrain, making firefighting efforts very difficult. And whereas the Director of Emergency Services of Delaware County did proclaim the existence of a local emergency within the county on the 18th day of August 2023, whereas the Director of Emergency Services of Delaware County did request the Governor to proclaim a state of emergency through the Director of Cal OES, and through this resolution, the activation of the California Disaster Assistance Act. And whereas the Board of Supervisors does hereby find that the aforesaid conditions of extreme peril did warrant and necessitate the proclamation of the existence of a local emergency, with the Director of Emergency Services requesting the governor to proclaim a state of emergency, and that the activation of the California Disaster Assistance Act in order to assist Del Norte County with the financial burden and resource requirements of the aforementioned wildfire event. And now therefore it is hereby proclaimed that a local emergency exists throughout Del Norte County, and it is further proclaimed and ordered that during the existence of said local emergency, the powers, functions, and duties of the emergency organization of this county shall be those prescribed by state law, by ordinances and resolutions of this county, and by the Del Norte County Emergency Operations Plan as approved by the Board of Supervisors on the 13th day of April 2021, and that said local emergency shall be deeded to continue to exist until its termination is proclaimed by the Board of Supervisors of Del Norte County, State of California. Effective this date, signed by myself, Darren Short, Chair of the Board of Supervisors. Do we have a motion to adopt this resolution?
I make a motion to adopt it.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any public comment on this resolution?
Are you going to have a date when this is going to expire, or is it going to be one of these things where the event happens, 4 months previous to when you finally relieve us of the onus of declaration of emergencies? Is there some kind of a date that you're going to tell us when you're not in an emergency situation?
Well, we won't be able to put a date on it yet, Sam, because the emergency is still ongoing. So,
but I mean, is there some sort of statute limitation on emergencies, or are we going to be relieved of the emergency situation, say in December or March of next year, or something of that nature, where the emergency's long since dissipated and we no longer really need a declaration, yet for some reason when these things get started they last endlessly, it seems like. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. I don't know that there's any kind of statute that dictates how long an emergency situation could or should last.
I think Joel was going to look really quick for that. It's nothing that I'm aware of. Typically, and I understand what Sam is saying, during our snow events, we actually had those open for quite some time, and that's at the direction of the state. When you're going through a process of trying to get funding through the state and federal government, they want you to keep your active declarations open or proclamations open until that process is complete, because they're reviewing our assessments and what we're claiming as damages to our county. And so until that's determined to be accurate and that we can move forward with that funding, they ask us to keep those open. And that's at the direction of Cal OES.
Very good.
Yeah, but Joel is looking this up.
Every 60 days, you have to review it. It doesn't automatically terminate. You just have to review whether there's the need for continued. And I just coming back to me, during the pandemic, the governor suspended that, so we didn't have to do that, and that's why it was just this indefinite thing. But for a normal state of emergency, the governing body shall review the need for continuing the local emergency at least once every 60 days. Until the governing body terminates.
That was fast.
And that actually has just changed not too long ago because of COVID. It used to be every 14 days. I had to bring that back to you.
Oh, very good.
Chair, I have a hand raised online for public comment.
Okay, 1 second. Supervisor Wilson, did you have something?
I was just going to respond, because a lot of these things, many parts of the emergency may expire. However, because of ongoing dealings with the ramifications of the fire, we may be long in seeking funds to restore and protect our watershed, restore roads, access, et cetera. So, I mean, even though we may get power restored and everything seems to go back to normal, because of these events, you may be dealing with months or years of actually recovering from the emergency, and the emergency funds will be part and party of that recovery. And so emergencies may, that may not go away, even though by sight you may not see much much within the community of being an emergency, but still, we're taking action to recover many of the damages to our infrastructure that will be needing to be repaired long after the fire trucks have left.
Thank you for that.
I do have a question. This emergency simply allows us to have expenditures of general fund dollars specific to response to the fire. My bigger concern going forward is the reimbursement of those general fund dollars and the declaration of a state emergency for our area. It seems to me, and I tried to have discussions with Senator McGuire on this, that we need some political pressure at the state level in the governor's office to try to get a declaration declared for our area. It seems long overdue. I know he triggered one before the hurricane even arrived in Southern California, and that doesn't make a whole lot of sense when this thing's been lying on our doorstep. So I'm wondering if any of the board, or if you, Neil, have heard about the progress of that declaration at a state level yet.
If the board wants to respond first to that, I can respond afterwards.
I've just spoken with Senator McGuire's staff, who said that they needed to have us ratify this before, so then they could start pushing it through to the governor.
Excellent. That's good news.
Is that correct, Neil?
Yes, I heard something similar to that, and I haven't heard anything because I know that you reached out to me yesterday, Supervisor Howard, because of the declaration or the proclamation in Southern California, and I haven't heard any updates as far as Northern. It's kind of just a process. I think it's kind of based on our population as well. There are thresholds set that what the responsibility is up to the local government before the state gets involved.
Well, and again, what's sad is we had the presentation this morning saying this is the #1 fire response in the country, and yet I'm sitting down there, watching Channel 2 News out of Oakland, and they talk about the fire in Siskiyou, they talk about the fire in Trinity,
We're not even on the
but they
radar.
didn't even mention anything about what's going up in Delaware County and of the resources that
Reached
we
out to
need.
the Office of External Affairs for the governor's office too, and haven't gotten a reply back from him either. So.
Let's stay on it.
Yes,
All of us.
certainly. Certainly. Can we go ahead with the public comment online, please?
PSG News Corp, you are on. You just need to unmute your mic.
Yes, can you hear me?
Barely.
Can you hear me now?
A lot better.
Okay, my name's Elias Mavris. I'm calling out from Point St. George. Just want to thank the firefighters that came from afar, like Calistoga and Napa Valley, to help this situation we're dealing with. I also want to thank some locals that brought some news, Coco and Roger from Gasky, also Gasky Mike on YouTube, who's droning some of the stuff and bringing news. And also a good friend of mine on Low Divide, Mike, who's up there giving me information. This is how we get information in a small community from community, which is a common unity in a small community like ours, getting that kind of news. Also, just want to mention really quick that going back to that Fish and Wildlife meeting, which I jumped on just to watch what's going on with that case, and one of their board members continued to say strength in numbers. Strength in numbers. He must have said it 10 times to push an issue. If we want to push an issue as a community, it's strength in numbers. People have to come out and voice their opinion, just like we are doing here and in other places. Also, one thing was interesting. If someone can tell me in that room how many people are visiting or interested or speaking or sitting in the audience at that same building, where the Fish and Wildlife cameras in that same room, as you have for the speakers, showed the room and showed the people that were in the room coming to speak, where I've never seen in my time going to the meetings a camera angle of how many people go to these meetings, and that's very important. I'm just voicing that people should come out and speak. Thank you.
Okay. I believe we've got a motion and a second. We'll go ahead and close public comment and bring it back for a vote.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Supervisor Starkey?
Yes.
Supervisor Wilson?
Yes.
Supervisor Borges?
Yes.
Chair Short?
Yes. And with that, seeing no legislative and budget matters, we will adjourn this
Hey,
meeting.
Chair Short, if you don't mind, if I could just make one clarification from the last public notice that went out. I wanted to make sure that I stated this. In that notice, it does say that we're closing South Fork Road. That's not accurate. It's closed to non-residents. People that can show proof of residency are still allowed, of course, to go to their homes at this time.
Very good. Thank you for that update. And with that, we will adjourn until our next regular meeting, September 12th, 2020.